when I began thinking about this event, my wife and I had been talking. That's my wife, Amanda, and we were talking about, events. My wife is a counselor, and of course, my thing is coaching, motivational speaking. But we wanted to create a vehicle of life change so that we can impact the lives of others. So, in looking at that, what we began doing is looking at other vehicles that we could put in place. We got some things that we're looking at future, but one of the things I do is a lot of writing. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was reach out to different people in different fields and different genres and find out if we can pull our resources, our talents together and begin to become a blessing for others. And thus, of course, we created the Ultimate Extreme Life Makeover. The goal today is to give you some tools that you can leave with that will allow you to impact your life and take your life to the next level. And like I said, we have a host of speakers here that will allow you to do that, and it's going to be wonderful. So for you, like I stated earlier, I know that you have to leave probably halfway through. That's not going to be a problem. Once the DVDs and the audio, or CDs and the audios are done, what I'll do is send you an email and say, listen, these are the audios, the CDs, you can see the complete program, and at that point, you can order them at that point. So just I'll let you know, though. So, but thanks for coming. Thanks, everyone, for coming. So let's get started. I want to tell you a story, but first of all, everyone has something to write with, correct? What I want you to do is take a few moments and just write down 3 things that you desire to manifest in your life. Because, see, before you can manifest that thing, you got to know what it is. And so there's something about the power of the pen to the paper or the pencil to the paper and bringing about your manifestation. So write down 3 things that you want. As you're writing those things down, I want to relate to you a story. This story is about monkeys in a cage. And the whole point of this story is to show us how we're often programmed to think a certain way, whether it be because of our environment, our community, our family, our friends, whatever. And sometimes we do what we do, and we don't even have a clue why it is that we do what we do. Scientists began to do a study, and what they did was put 5 monkeys in a cage. In putting these 5 monkeys in the cage, what they did also was they put a ladder inside that cage, and they put a banana at the top of that ladder. After putting the banana at the top of the ladder, they let the monkeys go. The monkeys went to gravitate to grab the banana. And every time one monkey went to grab the banana, all of the monkeys got sprayed. So this began to happen time and time and time again. And what the monkeys discovered was, if we go after that banana, we're going to get sprayed. So anytime a monkey would actually go for the banana, the other monkeys would attack that monkey. So all the monkeys in that cage learned, I better not go after that banana. As we move forward, they began to take one of the monkeys out of the cage, and they replaced that old monkey that had been conditioned with a new monkey that had not been conditioned. Now, and of course, the new monkey got into the cage, and it was excited. It says, there's a banana up there. I'm going to get it since none of these other monkeys seem to want the banana. What would happen was that all the other 4 monkeys began to attack the new monkey that was in the cage. What the new monkey learned was, I better leave that banana alone. They replaced another monkey with the old monkey, put in a new monkey. So now you got 3 old, 2 new. The new monkey comes in, and he says, man, I don't know what's going on, but there's a tasty banana up there, and I'm going to get it. And what happened was, of course, we all realized that the first 3 monkeys attacked the new monkey. But the 4th monkey also attacked the new monkey with a lot of gusto, too. He was excited about it. Now, and again, he had no idea why he was attacking this monkey. But he took part in attacking this new monkey. Pretty soon, over a period of time, all of the old monkeys that were conditioned and sprayed were replaced by new monkeys. They would put a new monkey inside the cage with the 5 monkeys that had never experienced being sprayed. And what do you think happened? The same thing. The 5 new monkeys that had never experienced the spray attacked that new monkey that went after the banana. So basically, they were conditioned. They didn't know why they weren't going after the banana. They just knew that you did not go after the banana. My question is, as conscious creators, what is that thing that we've desired, that we've sought after, but everyone said, you can't go after that dream. You can't do that. You're too old. You're too young. You don't have enough experience. You don't have enough education. What is that thing that the monkeys around you have been telling you that you could not accomplish because they were unable? Now, they don't know why. That's just been the way it has been since the beginning of time. They don't know why you have to have a certain type of degree to exceed. But what we find is that if you believe, as Henry Ford says, that you can or cannot do a thing, for you, that belief is correct. So the goal is that we begin to see outside the spectrum of what we know. Because, see, what we know is the illusion. But what we have within us is a desire to succeed in something. Each person knows what that desire is. And hopefully what you've done with that desire is put it down on your list. Now, when we begin talking about desire, the important thing to know about desire is that if you can't give whatever that desire is 100%, it's probably not a real desire. It may be a wishful thinking list. It may be a daydream, but it's probably not a real desire. Because, see, real desires is that thing that we would give ourselves to no matter what. It's that thing that we find ourselves doing when we're doing it, we lose track of time. Real desires are that thing that if nobody ever paid us to do it, we would still be excited about doing that thing. So when you look at your list and you say, do my criteria line up? Are these the things that I would do if nobody would pay me to do these things? Are these the things that people said that it can't be done, but I know in my spirit that I'm called to do it? I want to share with you some tools that were given to us by the master teacher, Jesus. Because, see, we have to begin looking at life and living life from the inside out. We have to look at our paradigm and not look on it based on the 5 senses, but look at it based on that heart knowing, that knowing beyond knowing, that I know that I know that I know that I know. And you don't even have any reason. It's just something in your spirit that resonates with this idea, with this dream. Some of the things that we say that keeps us from our dreams. I'm only human. That's one of the greatest misnomers in the human race. And what I mean by that, when we say that I'm only human, we take that as the status norm and we say, well, everybody's doing this. This is where everybody's operating at. But we've been created in the image of divine intelligence. We find that in the beginning of the word, it says, in the beginning, God created men and women after his own image and after his own likeness. So one of the first things we find out and discover about God is that he says, and it is so. Now, many of us, we think that we can say, but manifest something else in our life. Now, Sister Diane is going to be speaking of the law of attraction later on, so I'm not going to go into detail about that. But what I'm saying is you can't speak something out of your mouth and not manifest it in your life. Because Jesus says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Now, sometimes what we'll try to say is once we speak the thing, I was just joking. You know, we may say something as simple as, well, she makes me so sick. And then we wonder why we're dealing with these ailments in our body. Man, he's a pain in the neck. Then we wonder why we got this soreness in our neck. I can't stand that person. Then we wonder why we got all these leg problems. Years ago, my wife would tell me that I had to be mindful of my conversation. And I disputed it. I said, what do you mean? You mean that if I say something out of my mouth and I say certain things that the universe, God doesn't know that I'm joking or that I don't mean what it is that I'm saying? Your subconscious mind can't take a joke. So when you begin saying these things over and over and over again, They become a part of your reality. So if you're dealing with some type of ailment, inquire with yourself, what is it that I say to myself every day? What do I say about my health? What do I say about my mental state? Do I say, I was talking to a friend of mine, do I say that I'm so stupid? One time I was at work and I was socializing with a coworker, and he was working on a project, and he said, "Man, I'm so stupid." And I said to him, I said, "Don't talk to my friend like that." We both got a big laugh out of it. But he understood that what he was saying was not appropriate for who he was. So when we say that I'm only human, first and foremost that you must realize is that first and foremost that you're a creator. And by the byproduct of being a creator, you're going to create those things that come out of your mouth daily. As Jesus says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. He also says this, unless you become as a little child, you can in no wise enter into the kingdom of heaven. Now, most of us would just take that as a religious stance, and we say, well, then I'm not going to heaven. But no, what he's saying is that you can't enjoy the benefits of this faith life, living life on faith, living life on purpose, until you become childlike in your beliefs and in your faith. Now, I want to share with you a story about a man that many of us know. His name is Walt Disney. And this story is actually relayed to us by a gentleman by the name of Mike Vance. Mike Vance was a gentleman from Ohio. He went to school and he began working for the Disney Corporation. And one day when he was coming to work for the Disney Corporation, he was driving in. My wife was winking at me, and I didn't know if that was 10 minutes to go. So he was going into work, and he noticed that Walt Disney said, "Mike," he says, "don't you know that it's raining?" He said, "Yes, sir, I realize that it's raining." He says, "Mike, rain is not something that you get out of, it's something that you get into." He says, "Mike, get out of the car and take a walk with me." And Mike relays and says that Walt Disney apparently was not from Ohio, because he didn't realize the rainpour that took place in Ohio. So it was not something in Ohio, you got out of the rain. So anyway, Mike and Mr. Walt Disney began to take this walk. And he says that they talked about all these different things, but something struck him. And they noticed rain drizzling down the window pane. And Walt Disney called Mike over and he says, "Mike, do you remember when you were a little boy and you were on the other side of the window and you looked at all the big people out there walking in the rain and you wondered to yourself, what did big people like me do in the rain?" Mike says, "Yes, Mr. Disney, I do. I remember that." He says, "Furthermore, Mike, do you remember that you used to wonder to yourself as that little boy, what would I do as a big person in the rain?" He says, "Yes, Mr. Disney. Yeah, I remember that." He says, "Furthermore, Mike, do you remember as a little boy when you were looking through that window pane, wondering what big people like you did in the rain, the kind of person that you wanted to be when you became a big person walking in the rain?" He said, "Mr. Disney, I really never thought about it like that, but yeah, I guess I do." He says, "Mike," and see, this was Walt Disney. He always asked a series of questions. And see, that's what you discover about children. Children ask questions. But what happens? We have children and we're raising them. And we say, "Boy, stop asking me those questions." They said that Jesus was asking questions of the Pharisees as a boy of 12 years old. What we find about genius, people who are genius, they ask questions. Leonardo da Vinci asks questions. You question everything. You look at what you're doing and you say, how can I do it differently? How can I do it better? Is there somebody that I can bring alongside of me to help me? Ask the questions. So Mr. Disney continues. He says, "Mike," he says, "you know one of the greatest things in the world is?" He says, "Being that little boy, looking out through that window, wondering what it is that big people like you do walking in the rain, and then becoming the adult that that little boy always dreamed that you could be. And he said that's the kind of person that Mr. Disney was. So as we look back, each one of us, we age chronologically, but the truth of the matter is the child is still alive. And that child is still seeking for advancement. That child is still seeking taking their life to the next level. That child is still crying out saying, let me fulfill my dream. My question to you creators out there is, what is that child saying to you? And are you in the process of living that dream that that child always knew that you were capable of becoming? The problem is we stepped into the real world. And in the real world, we say, well, you can't pursue your dreams. Nobody's going to pay you to do that. Who do you think that you are that you can step out and live your dreams when everyone else is struggling? You got to go back to the child. Jesus says, unless you become as a little child, you can in no wise enter into that more abundant life. He says, I come that you might have life, that you might have life more abundant. So what he's designed to give you is that more abundant lifestyle. So look at that little child and remember the dreams that you had as that little child and begin discovering what it is that you can do to begin to manifest that dream that you've had since you were a child. The dream doesn't go away. It takes on various forms, and you say, well, I'm too old to do that. The dream may not be being a cheerleader. It may have been that I needed to be in front of people. I need to express myself. But find out the core to what it was as that little child. What was that thing that moved you? What was that thing that still moves you? What is that thing that you're passionate about? When I speak of conscious creation, there's a 7-step process that I normally go through. The first step, and it basically spells out creator, but the first step is C. I don't know what creator. Like, what creator was that? The first letter is C. C stands for consciousness. First and foremost, and I've touched on it briefly, you must realize that you're in fact a creator. That you've been created in the image of divine intelligence. And if you're not happy with your present circumstances, begin to think about your state, your thoughts, your words, your actions that have brought you to this point. Do you need a pen? Or you give? Yeah. Okay. You look at what has brought me to this point in my life. What are the things that have led me to this place? And I say to you, creators out there, is look at your thoughts, your words, and your actions. And as you begin to look at those, begin to make the change. Begin to take in positive things. Look at books that will benefit you, movies and so forth that will actually enable you to become the person that you were created to be. So first and foremost, you must become conscious that you in fact are a creator. Secondly, you must begin to release negative beliefs. What are those things that you've been told or the things that have been said to you as a little child that you'll never amount to anything? That you're not smart enough, that you're not good enough, that you're not pretty enough, that you're not young enough, that you're not old enough? What are those things that have been said to you that have kept you in the place where you're at this point? And what I say to you is that you must begin to release those negative concepts and beliefs that have held you bound. But you first have to give them a name. One of the things that we discovered about Adam was, he says, give each and every one of the animals, God said to Adam, give them a name. As we begin to call out those things in our life that are holding us back, they lose power. So you have to begin to call out those things and realize those things that are holding you back. If it is a bad attitude, negative beliefs, jealousy, envy, hatred, whatever those things that are holding you back, you got to give them a name. Once you begin naming them, they lose their power over you. And Jesus said it this way, that you begin to clean that house. You clean the house out, and you release those old negative concepts. You also begin to move forward in the aspect of forgiveness. That means you're going to have to forgive somebody. If somebody comes to mind, and when that person comes to mind, you have a lot of upset. You're not feeling good about it. And you know that this upset resides within you. This person may have passed on. This person may not even be in this world any longer. But what you have to do is find yourself releasing that person. And you're not releasing them for you. You're not releasing them for the other person. You're releasing them for yourself. Because what you're trying to do is liberate you. And the way that you do that is through the tool of forgiveness. And it's true. It doesn't mean that you necessarily forgive the person, but you don't give them the power over you to be upset. You reframe the incident that you saw. Say that they hurt you in a particular way. You see that, but you begin to reframe it by saying, okay, maybe they weren't mentally stable at that point when they did what they did. Sometimes that's what we're dealing with. You know, we look back on adults and people that may have abused us or hurt us in the past, but they weren't balanced. But as a child, we don't understand that. We don't realize that they weren't balanced. Maybe there was something that they were dealing with. Maybe there was some abuse that they carried over, so they had that same spirit. Maybe somebody was in a financial strait and they didn't think that they could approach you back after they could not pay you back your money. Whatever that situation is, reframe it. I can remember one day I was driving to work. I was driving down 285, and I was cut off by somebody that, to me at that point, didn't seem very intelligent. And I think I voiced it. What happened was I found myself in a state. Now, I was upset. Now, that person went on about their business. They were driving and playing their music or whatever was going on. They didn't have a clue that I was upset with them. Once I realized that they may have had something going on in their own life, in their mind, whatever, and I began to release them, at that moment, my state changed. State change is nothing more than making a decision to change your thought. I say stop. Shift your thinking to optimize your potential. Focus on something else. Ancient text says this: draw nigh to God, and God will draw nigh to you. Resist the devil, and he will flee. Now, I'll put a little twist on that. Draw nigh to your good, and your good will draw nigh to you. Resist error, and error will flee. Now, the thing is, people think that in battling error, that there's a conflict that needs to take place and that they need to rebuke and they need to... The way that you resist error is by focusing on good. See, there's something in you called a reticular activating system. That simply means you can't think two opposing thoughts at the same time. So you can't focus on the good in your life and then focus on the negative. You can't focus on what's bad and focus on what's good. So my thanks to you creators out there is what I'm challenging you to do is that when you're experiencing upset, when you're going through a tough time and you're feeling that in your core and you're feeling that upset inside, begin to think about something that makes you smile. Begin to think about something that brings you joy. And what you're going to find, and if you're dealing with a person, begin lifting that person up in a prayer. What will happen is that thing that caused you upset will dissipate. And all of a sudden, you're going to find yourself experiencing joy. But if you want to attract that thing in your life that you've put down on your list, I had people write down 3 things on their list earlier, things that they wanted to desire, that they wanted to attract into their life. The way that you attract those things into your life, though, is being in a state to receive them. You know, I have a dear friend of mine, and he's been unemployed probably for about a year, if not more. This is his second go-around. And one thing that I know in speaking with him is that he's dealing with a lot of upset. You know, he feels that he goes into these events or these interviews, and he says, well, they've already picked their person out. And I inquire with him, I say, is it possible that they sense the energy that you're sending off? And he says, no. I go in there with a smile on my face, and, I'm looking the role, and I'm looking good. So, no, they couldn't possibly see. But what he doesn't understand is sometimes, most of the time, we speak spirit to spirit. And sometimes you can talk to someone, and you say, well, I don't know what it is about that person, but they really just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And the only thing they said was good morning. But there's something in their spirit that did not agree with your spirit. And so what I tell people to do, what I'm coaching them, is when you're interacting with someone, when you're interviewing with somebody, when you're having conflict with your spouse, your mate, send out loving vibes towards them. Even though they may not understand, let them know that you're loving on them. And it's not going to be in the words. I find that the more that I say that I've changed, the more that I appear to stay the same. But when I send out loving vibes to my spouse, when things are not pleasant, when things are not going the way that we believe that they should, I speak spirit to spirit, and all of a sudden there's an agreement that takes place that words cannot transcend. Because I find for me, as much as I love to talk, my words fall short. But it said that the Spirit gives utterance when we don't know what to say. So when you find yourself in conflict with someone, I challenge you to send out love to them. Don't say anything. Don't say, hey, listen, I forgive you. First, send out love, because see, what they're going to sense is your spirit. Then they're going to be open to your words. Far too often, though, we work off of the five senses and we do the reverse. We say, well, I'm just going to show them, and I'm going to do all of this, and I'm going to say all this, and I'm going to just... And yet, when we do all of that, our efforts are rejected. And we're wondering, what is it that I can do so that my efforts are being received? Send out loving vibes. Send out love. Seek the other's best interests. When people know how much you care, then they will discover how much you know. But far too often we want to let them know how much we know, and they have blinders. They can't hear us. So our knowing, as it were, falls on deaf ears. Most of us operate out of a have, do, be mentality. What that means is, if I have enough money and I do the right things, I'll be happy. But it's really an opposite flow of how the universe works. Jesus had something so much so, he called it the Beatitudes. You come from a state of being. You find happiness within yourself. You begin to find success within yourself. I am successful. Yeah, my bank account doesn't reflect it yet. The car that I drive may not look like much yet. But I am successful. That's what you begin telling yourself. I'm in a prosperous relationship. You say, well, DeCarlo, I'm single. What are you talking about? You begin seeing yourself as the person that you desire to be. You begin operating from that state, and what's going to happen is you're going to begin to attract people into your life that see your good, see that state of being that you're sending out to them. Whatever it is that you want to attract, be. And as you operate out of that state of being, what you're going to discover is that you attract more of that into your life. Far too often, we're operating out of lack, loss, and limitation. And because we're operating out of lack, loss, and limitation, we're absorbing and attracting more lack, loss, and limitation. But we say, well, DeCarlo, I want wisdom, wellness, and wealth. Then you have to begin coming from a state, from a place of wisdom, knowing that you're linked with the creator of all things. It's not about my knowing, but it's about who I'm linked with. You know, there's a wonderful tool out there today on the internet called Googles. And Googles can make a person a genius Because when you don't know it, you can go out to Google's and type it in. YouTube can make a person a genius. All of a sudden, my wife said, I broke such and such. She breaks a lot of stuff, too. And I'll go on the internet, and all of a sudden, I'll type in YouTube, phone broke. And all of a sudden, I'm finding out the resolution of how to fix that phone. She thinks I'm the secret's out now, but she thinks I'm the most brilliant man in the world. Because I fix all this stuff. But normally what I'm doing, whether it be with computer issues, whether it be something around the house, my car, whatever it is, I'm going out to YouTube and seeing if somebody has something out there pertaining to that issue. So I only bring YouTube and the internet up. You're linked to someone so much greater, so much larger than all the computer access in the world. You're linked to an infinite God. And when you're linked to that infinite mind of the universe, you can ask whatever you will and know that you're going to have the answer to your prayers. And you don't have to have all the answers. That's the wonderful thing. I don't have to know it all. I don't have to have all the answers. But I know who to go to. Years ago, Henry Ford's intelligence was in question. And they were saying this man has less than a third grade education, he's not bright, and yet he's got all this money, but he shouldn't have all this money. And Henry Ford finally answered the critics, and he said this: it's true, I don't have all this great education, I don't have all this great knowledge. He says, but I pay people to have that great insight, that great knowledge. And these people work for me, so and thus I have this extended mind that serves me through the resources that I have. So my question to you is, who's in that network that you can reach out to that, say you're trying to get that book published, who do you know? Say that you're trying to take your life to the next level, who is that person that you know? Find out who's in your immediate network and begin to reach out to them. Begin to say, listen, this is a service I offer. Maybe we can sit there in partnership on something else. Look at what it is that you have to offer and begin to look at those people in your area, in your arena, in your network that can basically add life to what it is that you're trying to do. We all bring something here today. The question is, what is it that I can offer you to make you successful, and what is it that you can offer me to make me successful? That's what networking's about. That's what life change is about. And the great people in history, they get it. The Einsteins, the Edisons, the Henry Fords, they get it. The Leonardo da Vinci's, they get it. If you're going to take your life to the next level, you have to understand that nobody does it alone. Everybody that's going to succeed has a network of other people in order to aid them in their success. Don't be afraid to reach out to people, because what you'll find is that there's many people that want to do the exact same thing that you're doing. And many of my speakers here today was because I just reached out to them, or somebody that I knew reached out to them. And we all had a common vision. I was actually looking at taking this on earlier, and I had people that were involved that did not share the vision. So I had to basically disband that and start from scratch. Sometimes you may have to do that. You may have to look at what it is that you're doing and look at the immediate people around you and say, listen, these people are not taking me to where it is that I desire to go. And you may have to kind of revamp your life. You may have to make some major changes. It's not always comfortable, but it's necessary. Little boy goes to Disneyland, and he says, I want to meet his idol. He says, my idol is one of the most brilliant men living today. His idol was Walt Disney. He said, well, I may not be all that brilliant, but son, what I want to do is tell you the secret to becoming the success that you desire to be. And he says there's 4 keys to becoming that success that you desire to be. The first key, think. 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 I think it was IBM, one of their slogans at one point, I think it said, just think. you must begin to think of yourself as the success that you desire to be. See, because if you don't believe it, unfortunately, no one else is. So first and foremost, you must begin to think of yourself as the success that God has created each and every one of you to be. You got to believe it. See, it's not enough to just think that I'm a success. Einstein said it this way, that when imagination and the will are in a struggle, 100% of the time, imagination wins out. How many of us at the beginning of the year, I'm getting on that exercise program, I'm getting on that diet, and you were willed up to do it? And it's April, and you're off of that exercise program, you're off of that diet. Because you were doing it through the power of willpower. Sheer willpower will not take you there. It may get it started, but it won't take you there. But when you begin to visualize yourself, when you begin imagining yourself as your divine self, the one that you see in your mind that no one else can see at this moment. See, Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry, Tiger Woods, all these great people had to first and foremost see it in their minds. What is that thing that you want to be? What is that thing that you wrote down when you said that if I can do anything in the world, it would be this? First and foremost, you got to see yourself doing it. And then you got to believe it. Then you got to begin dreaming. Dream. Dream big. My problem with being married is my wife dreams so much bigger than me. I have a vision of what I see, and then she takes it tenfold and it scares me. Dream. Dream about that thing that you want to do. See yourself doing it. See yourself going to foreign countries, faraway places. When we made our first trip to Hawaii, we probably had a dime in the bank. But what we made was a decision. And we said that we're going to Hawaii. And we began to dream about that process of going to Hawaii. And it was one of the most beautiful places that we've ever been to. Dare. Dare to step out. Dare to step out and begin doing that thing that everyone else is telling you that's impossible. Step out and know that your efforts will not be in vain. I'm not saying that you're not going to run against obstacles. You will. You're not going to come up against naysayers. You will. But dare to step out and do the thing that you were called to do. It's called the responsibility creed. I'm responsible for how I see. What I seek is what I receive. I choose those feelings I experience. Within myself, I find deliverance. I decide those goals I will achieve. What I will be is up to me. All that I am, I've asked for. I need only ask if I desire more. I'm responsible. I now understand. As I think, so I am. Again, my name is DeCarlo Eskridge, and thank you for your time.